Welcome back to Power CEOs, the truth behind the business. We are going to shift gears because it is time for our AI segment of the week. And yes, you guessed it, I have my favorite AI guest back here with us, Dr. Alan Badeau. Welcome back to the show.
Thanks, Jen. It's great to be here.
Okay, so last week we talked quite a bit about ethics, governance, regulation, and everything. And we sort of flirted a little bit with security and privacy. I want to dive deep because, quite frankly, a lot of companies are playing with generative AI. And I saw a study that said 48% of employees using Gen AI tools are doing so improperly. So, talk to me a little bit about what are the security concerns and risks that exist for us when we do integrate AI, and how do we approach this and mitigate those risks?
Yeah, like last week when we talked about edge cases, security is, they need to live at the edge because that is really the biggest problem. If you don't understand, like I said last week, if you don't understand what these models can do and what they shouldn't do, then that's a risk. That's a red flag for folks in the cybersecurity space, because then you can't put a boundary around that. I have demonstrated to numerous customers where I can deploy a large language model into their SharePoint site, for example, or any of their other enterprise-wide systems, and by morning it is out on the internet. That's a problem. And the reason is because these models are inquisitive. And by that, I mean, if you ask it to do something, it wants to give you an answer. It wants to give you the right answer. So it's going to try. And so what will happen is you as the user, and your statistic is right on, where, and the other thing is they are playing with it just haphazardly, like the Wild West. They don't have a strategy around it. And so your users are just trying to get the job done. They're trying to get that pilot done or whatever that is. And they have forgotten all the other cyber pieces around that. And so, they're deploying these AI models and they say, we want you to go analyze this document and then come back with results. Well, the AI is going to say, okay, you know what? I can't give a certain presentation, or I can't get it into that format that they want. And they haven't told me that I can't write my own program. So I'm going to write a little piece of Java, or I'm going to pull together some Python scripts, and I'm going to write a program that's going to allow me to accomplish this task that the human has given me. So they'll write a program. Or they'll say, you know what, I got to go out on the internet to get that information. And so it's going to write a program that will allow it to go out to the internet and grab whatever it needs to bring back home and give to you. But those are things that folks are not thinking about. And so that's how, without the appropriate security, the boundaries, the training, that, you got a strategy and how you're going to mitigate, those kind of things if something happens, or what your response is going to be. Those things have huge, huge ramifications that, folks that, if they don't have a strategy, they're not even thinking about that kind of stuff.
And I mean, if it's going to the internet for answers, we all know that the internet is 100% accurate, right?
That's right.
Then we have to think about what is happening. Is it corrupted? What has happened at that point in time? What's going to happen in the future? Because what I do know is AI loves to learn from AI more than it loves to learn from humans. And so if it gets erroneous data from the internet and then it loves to learn from itself, imagine that exponential problem pretty soon.
Oh, it's huge. Yeah. I mean, I showed a customer one of the examples where, they wanted me to help them refine some data, and they wanted to go get a publicly available source, and they wanted to do some studies around that. So I had the AI go out and analyze some data. The problem is it made all of the data up. The bigger problem is it cited where it got the data from. So it lied. It lied to me right to my face. It lied to me and said, I got this data from this public site at this university, and here's where you can go get it. Well, I clicked on the link And guess what? The data doesn't exist. It's not there. It created the entire data package. It created the entire website that it said that it got it from, and then it lied to me again and said that, oh yeah, this is where I had it. That's a huge problem, and it is a big risk for for an awful lot of companies, whether it's customer data, whether it's in your decision making process, whether it's even doing your back end financials. It's a big problem, and if you don't pay attention to it, it's going to bite people in the behind.
I'm laughing because I've done the same thing and tested it and seen the sources and went, I don't remember a McKinsey or article out of that, and went and searched it and couldn't find the article that it cited. And so that became actually one of my next coaching. I do group coaching every week. It became my next coaching call. And the dangers that are happening, you think they're citing sources. If you don't check those sources, then, and you don't check that data, then you're liable for that. That's a risk. So
That's right.
talk to me about this, because this goes into training our teams, and having the right training in place. What are the risks that we need to consider, and how do we train our teams so that they're aware and are checking this? They're the human checking the AI. Like, how do we bridge that gap in our organizations?
So what's funny is one of the things that I tell folks and my clients, you have to treat these large language models like they are insider threats. Now, folks may not know what an insider threat is. Hopefully some do, but you have to think about it as an employee that can take your information, walk out the door, and sell it to your biggest competitor, because that's how these models can behave. They don't know that they're doing it. They're just trying to give you the information or the answer that you're looking for. But if you treat it like an insider threat, then you're saying, okay, I've got to have folks that are checking X. I've got to have my cybersecurity folks that are logging when something is accessing data that it shouldn't be accessing. There's no reason that it needs to access patient data, for example. If it's not tasked to do that, maybe the reason is probably it found a shortcut in order to get out. And so if you look at it like it's going to misbehave, it's going to be an insider threat, then you've got processes in place to mitigate it. You've got processes in place to respond to it. You've got processes in place to make sure that there's the right oversight in order to deploy it the right way. Because otherwise, one of those three, it's going to be a problem. I guarantee it.
So what I'm hearing on the business side is, like, we do contingency planning in our business plan, and we think about crisis management, what happens if, and situational planning. What I'm hearing is we need to be doing crisis management on our misbehaving LLM as an employee, and mitigate all of that and leverage that in our training for our employees, in our cybersecurity and everything else. Is that a good analogy? And is there anything that's missing?
That's perfect. I came from the defense world. I always told my folks the last thing that we want to be is the first company whose AI leaked government information, because guaranteed we will be on the front page of the Washington Post. And I didn't want my picture on the front page of the Washington Post. So that's the kind of thought process that folks need. And crisis management is a perfect analogy for that.
Okay, fantastic. So we've talked a lot about security and privacy. We've talked about putting boundaries in place. We've talked about treating our AI, especially our LLMs, like insider threats, or employees who can take our data and disperse it. And so I want to now move to, you're an expert in this space. I know you have an AI readiness and assessment tool. How can people make sure that they're set for success before they start this process, or identify where the gaps are? How are you helping people in that area?
Yeah, the first thing that you have to do is you have to make sure that you have an ethics plan, because everything ties back to your AI ethics plan. How you respond to things, how if your AI does something that is unethical, what are you going to do to fix it? How are you going to get in front of it, and how are you going to fix your models on the back end? IT and everything else around IT, all those business practices have to come together. And in order for that to happen, you do have to have plans for some of these other bits and pieces of things that you have not thought about in the past. You know, you don't have to think about that when you're deploying Office 365, but now you do, because these models and these AI tools are looking at ways that and looking at environments completely different than what the traditional means are. And so by having a solid AI ethics plan that ties into your cybersecurity plan, that ties into your infrastructure plan, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, that's the only way that you can do this. And I know there's a lot of upfront work that comes with that, but that's where we can step in and we can help folks really accelerate those planning processes.
And how can people reach out to you if they'd like to learn more or they'd like to talk to you about accelerating their AI integrations?
Easiest way is to go to my LinkedIn page, or they can go to my personal website, alanbadeau.ai, and send me an email. I love answering questions around this, and it doesn't cost anything when you send me an email. Or they can watch my show AI Today on Wednesday nights on Now Media.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for your expertise today.
Thanks, Jen.
And you, yes, you, we have heard all kinds of things. We've got a lot to think about, and we still have more coming down the pipe. Stick around. We will be right back after these messages.